We speak so frequently that the times most of us go to God are when we want something. Something bad has happened, we pray to God to fix it, or at least not to make it worse. So she said, well, the rest of the time, do you pray just for gratitude? Yeah, and love. And love. You know, the highest, the song that Puja Swamiji sings every night in the Aarti, the refrain says, the highest form of love is love for God. And so ultimately, that's really the goal. And when you love someone, it's not that you never ask something from them. You know, I mean, sometimes you're sick in bed and you say, oh, honey, would you mind bringing me a, cup of tea? It's not that there's something inherently wrong with asking something of someone you love. There's also something beautiful in a way of a sense of entitlement of, yeah, God is mine. Right? I mean, God is there for me. The same way that if you were sick in bed and you said to a loved one, would you mind bringing me a cup of tea? You know that they would. But that's because you've got a relationship of love. If you put an ad in the paper and said, looking for someone to just bring me tea in bed for free, there wouldn't be a lot of people who would sign up. There's a relationship that gets built. In that love, you serve. So asking is not the problem. It's not that you should never ask something from God. It's that that's not the highest place. Getting a cup of tea from your loved one is not your highest moment of connection. If you were looking back on your decades of a relationship of what were the deepest moments, probably getting a cup of tea in bed when you were sick was not one of them. It was an aside. So in the same way with God, that love of God, love with God, is the goal. And this is where the practices of devotion, practices of bhakti yoga are so important, is really to cultivate that love. But what I have found personally, coming not from a Hindu tradition, on a personal level, that it's easier for me to get into loving God through loving at all, and recognizing that which I am loving, or that whom I am loving, is God, or that which I'm loving in that being is God. That, for me, has taken me much faster and easier into a love of God than sitting in front of a deity or performing puja or chanting, or just on a personal level. I recognized very early that all the love I felt was actually loving God. And that if I got deep enough in all of my love, whether it was loving the trees as I lay in the pine needles and looked up at them, whether it was loving the people in my life, whether it was loving my life, whether it was loving life in general, whether it was loving the little kids walking along the mountainous roads at 6 o'clock in the morning, walking kilometers to go to school, but with little bows in their hair. I mean, just the littlest things that filled me with such joy. That for me was such an easy way in. This is so beautiful. Look at these children. Look at what a beautiful creation. They have nothing. But every day, there's bows in the hair. Beautiful braids, beautiful bows, freshly pressed uniforms. Because there's a joy in having the opportunity to go to school. Whereas I had grown up with so much privilege that we took it all for granted. I mean, in my school, the goal was always who could look like they literally had just rolled out of bed and into first class. I mean, sort of you won if you looked like you had had the least amount of time between being in bed and sitting in your desk. So pajamas, dad's boxer shorts, unbrushed hair, I mean, the whole thing. And just the sight of these lines of kids with oiled and braided and bowed hair just filled me from the beginning with such joy and such love. And it was so clear to me that what I was loving in all of the aspects of creation, I didn't know these kids. What I was loving in every aspect, in all the women, in all the people, was God. And so the point of all of that is use whatever gets you there. Whatever you can feel love for, whatever you can feel deep gratitude for. It may be a glass of water. Allow yourself to get a little bit thirstier than you usually do. You know, don't dehydrate yourself completely, but just don't drink immediately. Give it an extra half an hour, 45 minutes. And then just sit, what does water taste like? Wow. Wow. Thank you. When you walk out of your room in the morning, just like watch the sun as it rises over the mountains. Like, wow. So beautiful. Another day. Another day. And regardless of what a mess we've made of every single day that we may have been given up until this one, it doesn't matter. Because look, we get another one. I mean, what an amazing creator. Whatever your religion is. Who just keeps saying, okay, have another. Have another. You know, we were talking the other night about kids throwing peas off their high chairs onto the ground and making mom, pick them up. Well, every human mom at some point is going to say, okay, peas are over. Right? You've had 10 opportunities to eat them. You've thrown them on the floor 10 out of 10 times. Peas are over. But with God, every day, a new opportunity. Every day, another chance. A new rising sun. A new body. A fresh start. The leaves are there, the trees are there, the fruit's there, the sun's there, the water's there. And if any part of it you can feel grateful for, if any part of it you can love, you're there. And just keep tapping into that. Find things every day to love. Something every day. There was a speaker I heard at a conference I was at a few months ago who had been a National Geographic photographer for his whole life and now had retired. And he gave the most beautiful talk full of photographs about celebrate what's right. Now for him, he did it through photography. It's actually a TED Talk I would recommend everybody watch. His name was DeWitt something. But if you search for DeWitt National Geographic Celebrate, you'll find it. You'll find it. Some of the best 18 minutes you'll spend. And the reason is He takes you through the fields we walk through every day, the things we see every day, and how his mission was how he could use his camera to just celebrate what was right. And I mean, I sobbed through his entire speech. Just sobbed, because every slide was another reminder of just how amazing the creation is. And so if it's not a person, but it's a sunflower, it's a tree, it's a sunrise, it's a sunset, just find things that make you feel grateful, that make you feel connected to the universe. And the minute you find it, sit there. Sit there. Nothing is more important in that moment than experiencing that moment as fully, as deeply, and for as long as you can hold it. Smell the moment, taste the moment, hear the moment, take it in on every level. And that'll bring you into a relationship with God where, when things are needed, you won't hesitate to ask. But you'll already have the most important thing, which is God's presence. It's like if your loved one said, "No, I don't feel like bringing you a cup of tea." Well, all right, you'd be slightly annoyed, but you'd have something much more important than the tea, which was the relationship. And if your choice were someone from the classified ads who you didn't know who would bring you a cup of tea versus a relationship of love, even though for whatever reason it didn't include tea in bed, you'd always choose that. And so in the same way, what we end up with is a relationship with God that's more beneficial and more important and more fulfilling than anything we could even imagine ever asking for.